allocated him his time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
The proposed chair. Just for future reference.
No. The two honorable members can propose on your behalf because they are the ones who.
No, I'm talking in terms of time.
Maybe they are the ones who are the full members.
If you can maybe in future help us when the timekeeper is keeping time, maybe signal when we share time because we couldn't tell in between where are we. Just that.
Okay, remember the reason why. Let me explain this so that we all understand. The reason why we gave the EFF 30 plus 10 minutes, the DA 30 plus 10 minutes, the MKP 30 plus 10 minutes, it was exactly for that purpose to allow your substitute to speak. That's exactly how it was done with the ANC. That's why Honorable Sokanyile is not even worried because she knows where her time went. Yeah. Thank you so much, Honorable Shongwe, for understanding. So it will be the two of you, Honorable Nombalo and Honorable Skosan.
Correct, sir.
And I check the DA.
Yes, Chair, it's just myself and Honourable Schikkeling.
The two of you shared the 30 minutes. Thank you so much.
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even, sorry, Chair, it shouldn't even take that long, but yes, we'll share it.
Okay. We are going to start with the ANC. Your 1 hour starts now.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I know that I'm standing between us and leaving soon, so I'm going to try and be as benevolent as the Chair and be economical with time. General uMkhwanazi, thank you so much. I want to thank you firstly for all the time that you have dedicated to this process. I think even before the 6th of July and the work that you have been doing, I don't think that there's anybody in this country who does not appreciate the courage that it would have taken you to get to this point. So I really, really want to echo those members who have already passed their gratitude to you. General, I just want to get some of the political issues out of the way arising from your statement. I think it was this morning that you said after the 2007 conference of the ANC, many of the police officers were recruited to cope. You then said yesterday, as part of your testimony, that you had been approached again to join a political party, which I assume was recent. Can you take us into confidence which political party would have tried to recruit you?
No, there was no specific political party that tried to recruit me, but there was a statement made by EFF that says all wanted me to join them, but they never approached me. It was just a statement.
No, General uMkhwanazi, so you, during your testimony, you've been quite critical of General Sibiya. I just want to check that when General Sibiya was reappointed to the South African Police Service, do you know where he was coming from when he rejoined the National Office of SAPS?
The records I have is that he was employed at the city of Johannesburg. He came from the city of Johannesburg.
Do you know when General Sibiya was appointed at city of Joburg?
I'm not sure of the appointment date. I can check on the records that I have here, but I cannot remember exactly out of my head of his appointment. But that will have been done, I think, about 2 maybe 2019, 2020, something about. But I'll find the records and I'll come back to you on it.
Okay. Would you happen to know who was the mayor when General Sibiya was appointed in the city of Johannesburg?
Yeah. I'm not. I'll be lying if I say now. But what I know is that the mayor that was responding or made a statement with regard to the allegations that were leveled against him in the city of Johannesburg, where he made mention of the investigations or the procurement of
General, that's not my question. Let me help you. General Sibia was appointed to head forensic at the city of Johannesburg in 2016. The mayor then was Mayor Herman Mashaba. Would you know which party Herman Mashaba comes from?
Is a member of or is a leader of the Action SA party.
Thank you, General. You have extensively implicated Honorable Kola Barnett as having interfered with the work of criminal intelligence. General uMkhwanazi, would you happen to know which party Honorable Kola Barnett is from?
The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you. And then my last question, you've also implicated Honorable Adams for having possessed unlawfully classified information. Would you know which party Honorable Adams represents?
Beyond the correction, this is a colored Congress, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. General, having given those responses, then would you say that there are a number of political parties that are involved in interference with the work of criminal intelligence? Would that be correct?
You would be correct in saying that there are individuals, and some of them, honorable members, might be the members of political parties that might have broken away from the African National Congress at the time when they were part of the National Congress. I spoke about COPE as an example. It was a breakaway from the African National Congress. But by and large, the involvement of political parties in the mismanagement within the ACPS, especially crime intelligence, I don't think is based on a political party specific. It's members within crime intelligence that approaches anyone that they can influence within the political space to achieve what they want to achieve. So we, as we're investigating, we're not apportioning the blame to a specific political parties, but we're specifically accusing the members of political parties that allow this influence to happen.
Thank you very much, General. General, I know that this question has been asked in one way or the other, but I think it's important, given your testimony around the impact that all of this has had on our criminal justice system. What is your view of how the events since the 6th of July have affected SAPS? And we're asking because, as you have been speaking, you have very, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say, in an emotional way, but you have demonstrated to all of us the care and regard that you hold the police officers. So since the 6th of July, how has the service been, have members been able to execute their responsibilities? Are things getting better?
The SAPS is a big organization. The incident we spoke about on the 6th of July does not necessarily affect directly the entire organization. It's a portion of the ACPS that got affected. And of course, whatever that people has been speaking about out there, that seems to be painting a bad picture in the ACPS. But what we've seen is the outcome, an impact that our activities on the 6th of July has had in the ACPS is most of the time brings about hope into the intervention that the government and the executive is taking to try and create some stability in the organization. And this is a platform that allows at least the members to vent and see that the management cares about them, because we risk our careers, we risk our lives, and stand on their behalf to try and protect them. So internal within the organization, there's a lot of hope that we are seeing. Members are encouraged to go out there and fight crime. Even those that were a bit demoralized, they now have a bit of hope that something good is coming out of this, and therefore they will be able to do good going forward.
Thank you, General, and I hope that we will be able to assist where we can, really to get that hope realized. Generally, our terms of reference as an ad hoc committee obviously are very much geared to finding solutions. Now, you've made comments about officers capturing ministers. And we ask this genuinely, that how do you think it can be prevented? Because you've said in certain instances it is unknowing, or a similar word. What do you think needs to be done in your view? Is it a pure policing responsibility, or does it go beyond that?
Within the SAPS, it becomes a bit difficult if certain individuals within the SAPS are not going to be able to be standing firm in protecting the institution, and then allowing the executive authority to abuse the system. But I'll request an oversight body to look at the mechanisms that are already in existence. Like in this case, I made a reference to the establishment of the office of the secretariat in the office of the Minister of Police, and the functions that are given to that office by the Act. And then we interrogate whether does the Minister of Police make use of that office in the true sense of what the legislature aims for that office to be used for. And if you'll identify early by interviewing and engaging with the DG in that office, whether is any collaboration, a good working relationship between the minister and that office, because once there's a problem there, it then allows the minister to bypass that office and go to the institutions, because that's a safeguard in the South African police that I think the legislature, when government decided to create that office, and in the Act, it was a good move, but it looks like it's an office that has not necessarily been taken serious for what it's supposed to do in advising the minister on the how part. We've got many entities that report to the Minister of Police. There's security on the other side. There's police on the other side. There's IPIT on the other side, and SIRA. They all need some involvement of the minister in one way or another. So, but the moment the minister leaves that office and forget about the police and then runs around and focusing on the South African Police Service alone, these other entities are going to suffer. And it makes the minister to be busy with operational things in the police and forget about the policy that affects everyone else. Because there's many demands that are sitting as a responsibility of the Minister of Police in that space. So legislation, oversight on what the minister does, it is some of the things that might be looked at. And also the interaction. I was going to say in this case, what I made a recommendation about was to decide whether can we centralize the accounting of crime intelligence. You have two budgets that are passed by this parliament that must be accounted for within one entity of the police. And you find that there's uncertainty by the members of parliament within the portfolio committee on police whether to ask this question or not to ask this question. If they ask this question, and the response of police might say that belongs to the JCI, and you go that side, they might turn around and say, no, that's an open account, don't ask us. So we might want to look at how can we best make the SCPS to account in as far as intelligence is concerned. And that's and there we were able to see the role. It must be written in black and white. When you look at the Constitution, you look at the Police Act, crime intelligence is not written there in details. And the how part to account. It is an intelligence established other than the intelligence within the police and the defense that is written in the Constitution. And that is SSA. So any crime intelligence within the police and defense intelligence, well, I did not interrogate much of the defense, but the South African Police Service is not explicit in the Constitution, the how part, as it is with the PCI. Perhaps it's something that might need to be done there so that it's clear on what type of engagement does the intelligence has with the executive authority, if any. They will engage in this fashion when they produce a report, when they do this, when they do that, and must be outlined. The failure to do that or the absence of that, it leads into this interference, that, if you will, which majority of the time is the members from within crime intelligence that goes to influence the executive authority. But because there's no legislation that stops that, it then happens.
Thank you, General. My colleague who spoke earlier was the Chair of Justice. I'm the Chair of Communication, so I take a big interest in issues of media. So I want to go back, General, to your media briefing. I think you've spoken to us on the decision to hold that briefing. Now, I want to ask questions, but I'm afraid, because your testimony, amongst others, indicated that there are people with grabbers, they are listening to our messages and our phones and what. Should we, as this Parliament, or at least this ad hoc committee, take that to be an example, or are you putting it on the record? Because I would assume such is unlawful, General.
There are a lot of things that are unlawful that are coming to this country. A listening device gadget can come in pieces. This computer can be stripped in different parts and be brought into this country and assembled here and get used. The legislature should ask themselves a question. What makes, I'm not saying this is what they do, but the question that as a security person that I ask myself, what makes big security companies to be successful in investigation nowadays in this country? There are so many of them. They call themselves, they are forensic investigators, they are this and they are that and they are that. They trace things and they are doing a good job because they are able to find criminals. But how do they do it? That the ACP is not able to do. It's because of the gadgets that they have in their positions. Some journalists nowadays will say they are investigating, but they're actually listening to people's communication, and they come up with reports, they publish them. Because we don't know the existence of these gadgets. And that's why the intelligence of this country need to up their game and help us to stop this. Otherwise, you have people that run amok and they abuse the system that exists in the country. So it's a challenge that we have. I can say that without failure, because we've seen, as we investigate and we arrest, we've arrested a lot of criminals that are involved with truck hijacking, as an example. I just want to use a classic example. It's not a listening device, but it's a jamming device. They fly from wherever they fly from, and the information we have, they land in Lesotho. And when they arrive in Lesotho, then they get transported into the country. A small jammer machine, you put it in the car, you drive next to the truck. The truck had left Durban with the cargo. The vehicle drives behind the truck and it blocks the signal. While the truck is driving and the signal is lost, 5 kilometers away, they stop the truck and they divert the truck elsewhere. They disconnect the horse and they take the trailer and they continue the trip with the vehicle next to it, and nobody will pick it up until it arrives wherever it's going. It gets offloaded and the cargo is gone because there's a jammer signal. When you check where these jammers coming from, they are imported from foreign countries into our country, and they are used in committing crime. So the listening devices might be the same thing.
Yeah. So we need to tighten up there. General, the questions that I'm going to ask you, and I'm being very, very careful. I started off by saying that we truly commend the work that you're doing, but I also would not want us to be accused of dereliction of our duty as Parliament. You know, we've been there before. So there are questions that I have to ask you in that regard. You said that had you not had that media briefing on the 6th of July, we would be picking up bodies. And the words that you used was that we don't want to see blue on blue. Would it be correct, General, to say that the SAPS is factionalized?
It could be yes or no, but to some degree, I cannot say it's factionalized. We had experienced this when there was amalgamation that happened in 95, because a vendor speaking person from Limpopo and a Xhosa speaking person couldn't necessarily get along because we came from different cultures. And people from the MK, former statutory force and the likes that came in, there was a bit of challenge back then. But as the time progresses, we started adjusting. Training started being, synchronized, and we started drilling the same pace, and commands and everything. The culture started building together. What becomes a challenge nowadays, maybe to some degree you could say the head office there's some problems. You can call that, because almost everyone that sits at the head office, they come from different parts of the country, and they tend to favor each other. And that's why we start feeling a bit of a challenge. But by and large, we'll have a police station commander in Eastern Cape, in Western Cape, who come from the Bob, and is doing well in the province where he's working. So that cross-pollination in the province, I don't think factionalism in terms of that exists in the organization anymore. Politically, then we have a problem, because there is this affiliation of favor or patronage to certain political parties that exist. So, and it affects, and I must say, in the main, senior officers that came into the organization that were not necessarily part of the organization growing up within, because they come with a specific position political. That is one. But the biggest problem we have politically in the main is the existence of our colleagues, and they're going to fight with me when I mention this, the labor unions. When you have the labor unions that was established and get to affiliated with the structures that align with political parties, like in this case, we have one labor union that is affiliated to COSATU, and COSATU is a member of an alliance of a political party. You then have a police officer that sits with the minister of police around the table, that sits with the president of the country around the table as comrades, and they discuss things. When that person must now account to and subject himself to a commander at the station, he finds it difficult. The incident that happened in Durban when this president visited at the death of Mr. Mkhwanazi in Pietermaritzburg, there were tensions within the police, and the premier was unhappy with a specific policeman in the province, and the minister was not happy with that policeman in the province. I had to sit down and ask this policeman, but why the minister has a problem with you, and why the premier has a problem with you? What did you do wrong? You are here in Maritzburg as a police officer. Yet, and he confessed to me, he said, no, Gerald, I was a member of POCRO, and these were my comrades. I happened to spend more time at Nkandla when there was this division. I stick to Nkandla, and they didn't like it when we had a fallout. So they take that fallout and they associate this person with the murders and the poor investigations that are happening on these murders that are happening. And they point a finger at him and say, you are not investigating these cases or messing up these cases because you are favoring that opposition team. And that started creating a problem within the organization. So I think the labor union's presence maybe now slowly looks like the union is pulling away from the political activism that they were there before. But the presence of that activity and mobilization within the labor union and affiliation with the political structure created a problem in the organization, that you end up having the word comrades being used interchangeably amongst members at the police stations. And that then started creating problems because you have members that belong to other political parties that don't like this one, but that create a conflict.
Thanks, General. Maybe let me substitute the word for infighting, and I'm going to get off this point just now. General, when you were acting National Commissioner, is it correct that General Khumalo was head of counterintelligence and General Masemula was acting head of criminal intelligence?
General Khumalo was a brigadier. I had deployed him at crime intelligence as the acting person. The head of counterintelligence at the time, I cannot remember because there were a few generals that I had temporarily removed from crime intelligence and placed elsewhere while I deployed these ones on an acting capacity. So he was just there acting, not as a permanent.
General Khumalo.
Yeah.
And General Masemula?
Masemula was the acting divisional commissioner.
Thank you. General, there's an issue that concerns, I suppose, Parliament and society as a whole, the issue of whistleblowers. It's coming across that South Africans, we are losing a lot of whistleblowers. And whenever we raise these issues in Parliament, we are told that there's a protection services and witness protection. Why are we failing South Africans in the regard of protection of whistleblowers?
I think the problem that from my assessment of the real whistleblowers, the people who are privy to sensitive information, is that they share that information at the wrong platforms. If you have incriminating information, the best place to take it to is the law enforcement environment so that they do something about it. But if you're going to take it into a media house so that it gets published and that gets leaked, that you are the one that came with it, that media house is not going to give a safe protection at all. They won't. They take your information and make money out of it, but you're not going to get protection. But if you take that information that you have and approach the highest office of the law enforcement and you present and say, I want to present something to you, come and you disclose it, and you say, from now on, my life is in your hand, I need security. And if that person doesn't act on it, then you can go and report in another structures. If that's what the whistleblowers will do, it will assist. But to blow a whistle about something supposed to be criminating, but you're not blowing it within the law enforcement environment, you are blowing it just in the air, then you're going to be attacked. Then who to blame after that? Blame government? Blame the law enforcement? How did they know about you being a whistleblower? Sometimes it becomes a problem. So you'll find that so-called whistleblowers, some of the people, they will raise issues within their own environments, tell their executive about the wrong that are happening in places. But if those things are criminal in nature, even that whistleblower has an obligation to approach the law enforcement, because that's where you're going to get protection. And then you can demand the protection there. But if you're taking it to your own bosses at the workplace, and you hope they're going to provide you, it's going to be another challenge to get that. That is what whistleblowers in the country need to understand. That sometimes you need not to show your face. You just have to take information and supply it to law enforcement and say, I request an investigation on this, anonymously. So you are whistleblowing.
I'm sorry, General. Yeah, it's a very, very serious matter. And I think and please, thank you for that response. Can we do more? And what should be done to protect whistleblowers? Beyond the fact that they come and report to you, unless you are saying, you are satisfied that if they come to law enforcement, they will be protected. And the whistleblowers that are dying in the country are outside. But can more be done? And have you perhaps applied your mind to how that could be done?
In a country like South Africa, where a criminal is protected in the sense that he's protected, it becomes a difficult task to protect the whistleblowers. I can see that without hesitation. If a whistleblower is going to talk about a specific individual that is involved in the wrong, and the laws of the country allows a speedy response in removing that person away from society, that will give about comfort to the whistleblower. But with the absence of that, and with the lengthy court processes that we have as a country, it then allows the perpetrator to then victimize the complainant or the whistleblower. So to give comfort to the whistleblowers, my recommendation would be try not to make yourself known. See something, say something about it, but try and hide your identity. Because the moment you become known as to you are the one that are causing this problem, you're going to be attacked. And the likelihood of you being protected is going to be slim. I must indicate a protection of a whistleblower, if a full protection that will need to be provided, it disorganizes your family lifestyle. Because we take you away from where you stay and we send you somewhere else in the place that is foreign to you, and you stop doing the things that you used to do. I'm sure how many of you that have bodyguards that walk around with bodyguards. It's a very uncomfortable situation to walk around with bodyguards. Yes, they will be there guarding you, but if they crowd your space, they take away your privacy. And many people don't enjoy that. So that's why people end up not participating in those programs, because you are disrupting their lifestyle. They don't want it. So when they say they don't want it, then they get isolated and they get killed. And that becomes a trial. So that's my recommendation, can only be that while the government can try and create structures to provide safety to whistleblowers, but by and large, with this level of crime and corruption that we have in the country, whistleblowers must try and hide their identities. don't make your identity known. Report something via someone if you need to, but try not to make your identity known. Because the moment you make your identity known, you become a target.
Thank you, General. General, you spoke extensively about the unification of the SAP and Homeland Security, but also the decision to demilitarize SAPS. What was your view, or what is your view about that decision to demilitarize from a force to a service? And then also the reversal, I call it reversal by stealth, where again you would have had, your titles changed back to military titles. What is your view on demilitarization, and do you think that's the way we need to go?
Yeah, well, I happened to work at Division HRD, and I sat down with the commissioners that were behind the National Development Plan, and I asked them these questions. What were you envisaging when you came up with this on the NDP? And the answer was just simple. We were getting rid of the ranks. That was their demilitarization, nothing else. And when you go back to the military ranks, that means you are militarizing again. So that was their conclusion. So when I said, but our methods of operations and the likes, we did not have a problem with that. They said, no, we never had issues with that. You are a service, you serve when it's time to serve, and you combat when it's time to combat. So we never had a problem with those approaches. But because you moved away from the civil ranks, titles, to a military rank, we felt that you militarized. But I'm going to invite the ad hoc committee to get those commissioners, if they're still alive, that authored that document, to come and explain you what was in their mind when they wrote that. And so I felt then if that was the case, we go back to what the Constitution says, and a simple amendment on the regulations, we get rid of these generals' ranks, and we continue with what exists as commissioners, and problem is solved. That means we tick the box on what the NDP has envisaged, because that's what I picked up from them. But in the true sense of things, and I think the things we are doing in the police as we are operating is far more different than how it used to be done in the past. I think the legislation is directing us to behave differently towards the citizens. The court process forces us to behave differently towards the citizens. So I think there are already those controls that exist. I don't see us going back into how things used to be back in during apartheid days. The decentralization part in relation to my recommendation, it was more about trying to mitigate the risk that we've seen. The powers vested upon one person. The mere fact this team wanted to ascend someone into this high office, it was because this person was going to be able to control the entire country. Then that becomes a risk. That's when I said, no, but beside the workload that we've been complaining about, this is a new threat. This is a new risk that we are seeing now. Let's mitigate it in this fashion. That's my recommendation based on that.
Thank you, General. General, why I was asking about demilitarization, and what I'm getting from you is that there's no difference. I'm very concerned about the camouflage that you wore. You've explained why. Now, it's happened. I mean, you get a lot of credit for the work that the police are doing in KwaZulu-Natal, and I think you've become a very trusted figure there. But when you come out in camouflage, and you explained, you said you were in a mode, are you not worried that you would create a precedence that may be emulated, that now we have moved from this democratic state, we're almost militarized in our approach, and you then becoming the face of that?
No, I'm not going to be worried, because within the SAPS, the camouflage is known as to who wears the camouflage. There's no confusion in the SAPS. In the public, yes, there might be confusion, but internally in the organization, every employee knows that uniform belongs there. That is not the only camouflage we have. That's a special task force. There's another camouflage for the presidential unit. They walk around these passages all the time. You see them with the president. It's a camouflage. So it does not create much of the problem, although we are against it when it started, but it is there, and is adopted in the organization as one of the things. Perhaps honorable members might want to interrogate some of the reforms that should have been there as recommendations when this organization, South African Police Service, was formed in 1995. One of the recommendations which maybe was omitted, if we're to introduce it, might have an impact financially and otherwise. One of them was that we said we are amalgamating 11 police agencies, but in the reality, we did not do that. In the reality, we allow the South African police, the national government, law enforcement, to consume all these other homelands into it. Because we adopted the culture and practice and everything else for the SAP. There's nothing that was borrowed from Ciskei, Transkei, Gazankulu into this organization. We stick to the rules of what the South African police was doing, and everyone else had to transform into this. Yes, there are some adjustments that had to be done to conform to some legislation that exists, but the culture within the organization remained that of the SAP. The dress code that we wear, it remains that which was chasing you on the street during apartheid days. It remains the same to date. It might be a different design, a modern design, but the colors are still the same. So nothing has changed. So if we really want to transform from what the SAP used to be, we might look at the dress code. There's some of the things that were recommendations back then which were not implemented. General Celoni came in, he spoke about it, but there was no movement in terms of trying to introduce changes in that. So we still stuck to that uniform that we have not changed. The camouflage is one of the uniform, the task force camouflage I was wearing is one of the uniform that was there in the past. When a decision was taken for the SCPS to get rid of camouflage, Special task force was the only one that was allowed that these task force members can remain with the camouflage. Hence their dress code today, it's camouflage. They don't wear blue uniform because it is there and is provided for in the dress code of the police. So it's some of the things that the committee might want to, or the portfolio committee might want to start looking at whether do we change this or we don't change this.
Thank you, General. I'm going to try and move a little quicker. General, you've raised concerns about members of the media who have been given access to classified information for publishing. Now, you then said that you would want counterintelligence to investigate this. Do you not think that this is not a bit, you don't think that this is overhanded? I mean, there are forums to deal with complaints against the media. Don't you think that going the counterintelligence route, why would you want to use counterintelligence to deal with media and journalists?
We use counterintelligence to investigating anything that is a threat to the national security of the country. So if a journalist is a threat, he needs to be countered. I said in correcting myself, that it is not the media house, but it is individuals that are employed within that media house that have been handled by the rogue elements. So therefore you cannot ignore that and say we're not going to launch all our full force investigation towards journalist that is involved in the wrong, simply because he's wearing a badge of a media house. We'll investigate.
Can I just clarify? So is the problem the story that is written, what is reported, or is it the source of the information? Where exactly is the problem? I'm raising this because, I mean, obviously there are a lot of things that the media writes that many of us don't like. We don't have counterintelligence, but is it the report itself, or is it the information, the source where they get it from?
When the information, let me talk a typical example of what has happened recently. When we are told about the report that comes from that's supposed to be produced by the Inspector General of Intelligence, it's supposed to be in a position of the minister of that department that is registering a complaint. It's supposed to be with the Inspector General of Intelligence. It's supposed to be with Parliament, Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence. But when you find that report being presented by a journalist in an article, it means someone has done something wrong. So then the investigation must be launched. It is not the investigation against a journalist per se, but it's an investigation against the leakages of that. Journalist is a recipient, meaning is part of people that participated in the criminality of distributing that sensitive information out there. And it must be held accountable together with the people that pass that information to him or her. That's the type of investigations I'm talking about. That will make even the journalist to be responsible with information. When you get something, start reading about whether this is classified or not. Speak to your editors and say, what risk this is going to bring to the institution if we go out public with it? Shouldn't we take this and present it to the right authority ourselves? It came to our attention, let's take it to that authority and say, do something about this. We're keeping a check on you. We want a report of what you're doing about it. Couple of months later, they demand a report and say, we presented this thing to you, tell us what you've done, and then they can write a story. But if they themselves are not doing that, become responsible citizens and helping us to stop those internal, because they're saying they're protecting sources. I read the WhatsApp of a Deputy National Commissioner. If a Deputy National Commissioner says, I've got a source at Crime Intelligence, and yet he's a boss of Crime Intelligence, but he says, I've got a source at Crime Intelligence. He takes that information, sensitive as easy, give it to a deputy minister. A deputy minister will say, well, there's nothing wrong with it. And he keeps quiet with it. He has an obligation to discipline this general and discipline anyone else. Then while on the other side, it is an investigation of the complaint. But there must be consequences of those that are bringing the complaint in that fashion, because then they are bypassing the process.
Thank you, General. I think it's my second last issue. I want to go back to this matter that I tried to raise yesterday, and Honorable Malema shut me down. Your visit, General, with Mr. Ngabinde to Minister Mkhwanazi. Now, you said today that you went to see him because he's a high-profile person in the province. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if it's the norm. And I'll be honest, I did ask a few ministers, and I said to them, do the provincial commissioners in your provinces just come and see you because you're a high-profile person? And that was not the answer was in the negative. So my question, General, is why did you go there, knowing, as you said to us, that Mr. Ngabinde, I'm not sure the word that you used, something like that, he was a shady fellow, and you told Minister Mkhwanazi at that meeting. So what was the purpose of the meeting? What was it to discuss? And then you then said to Minister Mkhwanazi, this is not a good guy.
No, let me correct that, Honourable Member. The last part you're talking about was to the acting Minister Katshalia, not Mr. Mkhwanazi. Was a recent meeting that was held in Pretoria at the Pretoria College. In the presence in that meeting was the acting Minister Katshalia, the National Commissioner, and the two deputies, and myself. That's where we discussed that. The original meeting of Minister Mkhwanazi, at the time he was not in the police. He was not a minister in the police. I said I was close to Mr. Ngabinde. I might not explain to where did we go first before we passed at the minister's house. But we eventually passed the minister's house, where he said, no, he wants to go and see the minister. And I thought there was something strategic, maybe some of the serious things I want to talk about. But we ended up, the three of us, just sitting together and talking general until we left. So I thought it was just a meet and greet, and also just give assurance that he knows the minister. Yes, on hindsight, I now realize perhaps it might have been him trying to impress the minister that he's close to me, that the minister shouldn't worry about whatever they think he might need to be assisted on, because I have this relationship with me. I suspect maybe that could be the reason. But there was nothing wrong on what we've done. I had met many other people. Some of them might not necessarily be in the executive position in the past, but through meeting through someone else, let me meet so and so, they meet so and some members here in this portfolio committee, I met them in that fashion. When the senior officer wants to see you, or the member of government, or the leader in society that wants to talk to you, I meet with them. Some of them come to my office, some of them I meet them wherever we engage with. I don't discriminate against anyone. Taxi people, bosses, I meet with them.
But General, the reason I'm asking this is that, did you know at that point that he was a person of interest in the matter that you were talking to us about?
I said when I started, honorable members, that when I met the minister, he was not in the police, so he had no business with the police. He was a good man dealing with water, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. So there was no relationship with the police at all. Ngabinde was unemployed, was not even working at the office of the minister. So there was no anything that's got to do with work at all in that engagement. Fast forward, the minister approaches Ngabinde and says, I want you to be chief of staff. I'm now being appointed as a minister of police. That's where then the work relationship started. Now, because the person I've already met, my expectation is that he knows that even a chief of staff is a person I know, so it's easy for him. If he needs something, he can talk to me about whatever. That's why it was easy for me when this letter came out on the 2nd of January 2025. It was easy for me to call Ngabinde and say, please arrange a meeting between me and you and the minister, because I want to just talk serious business now. I was still under the impression that the person I met before, because there was just a social meeting, it won't be a problem for minister to meet with me because at least he knows my face now. But unfortunately, that did not happen.
Thank you. General, I'm going to push you a little bit on the IMC, because you said if that letter had not come out, we would not be sitting here, amongst other things. Have you participated in other IMC support structures before, like task teams, outside of this one, the political killings task team?
I've been involved in South Africa and abroad, where there's a lot of interventions done by this government. I've been part of it.
Okay, so an IMC, please let me know if I'm correct. An IMC would be able to give a political policy direction. I see that we've used them interchangeably, to establish a task team, its duration and its disbandment. Am I correct?
No, in this case, the IMC was tasked in resolving a problem, not establishing a team. Theirs was to make sure that there is a strategy, a plan put in place to deal with the problem that must be satisfied to satisfy the executive authority. That was their interest. The how part, what is it, a task team? Or is another prioritization of investigation, was left to the National Commission.
But General, doesn't it seem a bit absurd to you that ministers don't? So I would assume a decision that says disband that political killings task team is a policy decision. Why would you think that it's not a policy decision? What I understood from General Masemula's testimony was that he had a problem with an instruction that says immediately. You've said the decision was unlawful. So is it correct to assume that what you are unhappy about is being told disband it immediately? Is saying disband the team without giving you direction a policy decision?
Honourable members, my biggest concern with the minister's directive was that the minister gives an instruction about the disestablishment of the team, and yet the minister did not approve the establishment of the team. So why will you disestablish something you did not establish? That's a problem that I had right at the beginning. So I somehow forgave him, thinking that he's new, he doesn't know. That's why I felt that I'm responsible, I have a responsibility to brief him about the background and history of this team, so that this decision that he have reached is informed by something. So what I'm paging through and I'm trying to find, and I'm not sure where I'm going to find, but there's an annexure in some of the documentations that I have on the statement that I deposited at the commission with regard to the very first approval of the team. That letter, when I find it here, I'll be able to reference that in the approval of the task team was drafted. My first signature was me, proposed this is what we want to do. And then we had other generals. The current National Commission was one of the people that made the recommendation. Jared Sibia from the Hawks made the recommendation. Jared Zumane, if I'm not mistaken, from Free State made the recommendation. Eventually, the National Commission approved. There are no ministers, nowhere to be seen. And later, the ministers come to be briefed about the plan that we have put together. We brief them about what is approved already, and they are happy. So they didn't come there to approve it. We have it in black and white as an evidence. So why you then want to disestablish something we did not establish?
Okay. Let me ask you this. In terms of established SAPS protocols, how would a task team then be disbanded or dissolved, disestablished? In terms of your established protocols, is there a way in which you disband such task teams? I'm assuming others have been disbanded before.
The commander, the person who approves the setting up of such, is a person who decides how such must stop. The commander will understand the work of the police. And in this case, the commander, being a national commissioner, knows very well that there is case dockets in court. So when he decides to stop something, he must be mindful of saying, how do I manage these dockets that are in court? Because if I just say stop, and I don't direct what must happen to the docket and what happened to the investigating officers that are carrying these dockets, it's going to have an impact that is going to affect the value chain of the administration of justice, and therefore is going to have consequences that are negative towards the organization. He won't do that because he's a trained, experienced person who knows what it takes to do that. So the commander will decide at any time that there's no need for this, we disestablish this, but then he issues a directive, the help part. I'll give a classic example. There was a directive recently about the operation that we're running in the mines. Because of the car fund that exhausted, that we don't have, that was assisting us to run that operation, there was a directive of how we should then demobilize on that operation. So the demobilization is structured. You don't just switch off the light and go. There are resources, there are personnel, there's commitment that the members had made in the accommodation where they stay over time. So if you decide, take your bags now and leave, you've already paid for the accommodation for the month, you're going to lose that money. What happens to that? So there are many implications that the person who doesn't know the operations will make a decision that are going to have such negative impact without knowing.
I'm going to ask two questions together. The PKTT, how many cases did it resolve and at what cost during its lifespan, if you've got those numbers, General? And then was any part of the work of the PKTT funded from the COVID fund, that slush fund? My last question relates to the president that you spoke about. Were you happy with the response of President Zuma in 2011? What do you think President Zuma should have done? At some point you referenced that General Fani Masemola spoke to President Ramaphosa. In your view, what information relating to this operational issues of PKTT and what does a president generally have access to? So is this information that presidents generally know, they know how to respond to it, they've got it on their fingertips? I'm speaking especially on that matter as it relates to President Ramaphosa. My final question, General, and I promise this is the final one. You said something about the appointment of National Commissioner, or you spoke about how a National Commissioner was appointed, and you said Paul O'Sullivan had a list that he had to okay. Now, when this National Commissioner, General Masemola, was appointed, there was an open process that was public around the appointment of the National Commissioner. I think a similar process has started now, I think, for the NDPP. What are you saying, that it was Paul O'Sullivan's process? Thank you, General.
Well, maybe because I couldn't capture all the questions. The last part, the appointment, we know for the fact that it is the president's process to appoint the National Commissioner. But the process that was taken that landed into the president appointing, it is my understanding that there was a group of generals in the police that were invited for an interview. And there was a panel that was set up, and the Minister of Police was part of that panel, General Cele, and people were interviewed. And the names then were submitted at the president's recommendation that should allow the president to decide. But it looks like perhaps between that process, the completion of the interviews, and before the president appointed, maybe, let's be under correction on this one, maybe Mr. Paul O'Sullivan intercepted that recommendation list. And whether he was approached by whoever that he claims to be approached, that they approached him to vet that list that comes from the panel. To decide whether amongst these ones, who's the best. And because he was saying that he was giving these names, and he had to profile them and give it back to the president. Is Mr. Paul O'Sullivan who says that. So if he comes here and he says, and he said it publicly, that's what worried me, that when a private person like him can come and claim that he participated in the appointment of the National Commission, then it means we are doomed as a country. So if he's invited to come here and he come and confirm that which he said in public, is a person that tends to talk freely. So I believe he will speak the truth as to who approached him to do the vetting and what was the role of that vetting and why did he do that. And then you can ask the people that assigned him to do that, because he's not a member of government. We have state security, with many other intelligence environments that could have profiled the people, but looks like he was chosen. But who chose him? I don't know. But I know that there was this process was done of interviews before the signature of the president, which I think, if I speak under correction, I do not know what had happened in the past in other appointments of national commissioners, but I think this might have been the first one where there was a panel that sat and people were interviewed. In the past, like it happened with Pierre, you just saw a letter, yes, the person is appointed as a national commission. You go on Google to try and check who is this person. And what is the profile of the person. We had to learn when she appeared before us to know who the person is. There were no interviews and stuff done prior to that. So this might have been the first. Might have had his own flaws, but at least there was an interview conducted there.
Thank you, Honorable Sangoni.
Thank you. Although you didn't answer me if any funding of the PKTT came from the slush fund.
Oh yeah, maybe I should respond on that one. And that's why I said you've asked a couple of questions. The PKTT we presented before the commission, and I annexed the performance of the PKTT. That presentation was made before this portfolio committee in the past. And I will, once I get the reference into it, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, I'll be able to show you exactly. But the PKTT's work and successes, I sit here on my NSM 3 and it's sitting on page 30. If you go to that NSM 3, on page 30, paragraph 85, it talks about successes of the PKTT. Well, it doesn't talk about the budget specific on this one, but it reflects on the successes, and that runs up until number 98, which will then be the page 38. And this is on the statement that I deposed at the Madlanga Commission as a reference as annexed here, NSM 3, for your own reading. The total budget cost was also presented at the Commission, and I can find it here. We detailed and we attached the approval processes of every approval for the team to work. And every budget the CFO have allocated to the PKTT. And we made it clear that there was no money from any other cost center that was used by the PKTT except the specific allocation ring-fence for that purpose. So the story of police station money that Jerome UMkhwanazi, as Honorable Member Kona Barnard said it, I take money from police stations and I send to PKTT. She says it in public. She doesn't invite me to Parliament to come and answer that, but she says it in public. And there's money from Crown Intelligence that is used at the PKTT. These are all malicious stories that were published out there, but with no facts on them. We come and account for every cent of government, and we present before this portfolio committee on police for them to hold us accountable. And we can bring these details. If they're not here, I can give this to the ad hoc committee so that you know every single cent that was ever used. There is analyst that says, so much money, 500,000 rand used on laundry. How many people are washing clothes? That's in academia, honorable members. Who shows a capacity of not able to think as an academia? You take 500,000 rand, you don't even know how many members we're talking about. And you divide the cost of this washing over so many years, 2018 to date. How much it translates you to per day or per week washing. Then you'll be able to get into this figure. So sometimes we take the number and said, so millions of rand have been spent. And we don't calculate as to for how long has this project been running. Is this money justifiable as compared to the other operations that have run this long? Then you can draw comparison. But if your thinking capacity is challenged, you're not going to reach that conclusion because you won't apply the tool they're supposed to apply to reach a conclusion. You're going to be a researcher that is going to go out in the public and go and talk about it. And when some of us listen to it, we get disappointed because these are the people who teach our children at school that come and tell us, South Africans, about the quality of their knowledge of a subject that they're supposed to teach children when they present before us. It's disappointing, to say the least.
Honorable Sangwe,
An extra number?
are you done?
I have to be done, Chair. But I wanted to ask about that matter of the portfolio committee on police, but I don't want to get into trouble, so I'll leave it. Or maybe let me ask you, Chair, it's my last question. General, you said that the portfolio committee on police was very busy that day. They had other agenda items and what, and you never got any satisfaction on the intervention that you had wanted. Am I correct, General, that after you went on television, I did not know anything about policing, but I saw you in that portfolio committee. There was a lot of sustained media attention around the comments that you made. Do you remember that, General?
The media, yes, I remember that.
So it cannot be that because the portfolio committee that day was busy, this issue that you had raised was not top of mind, I mean. Because it can't be that the portfolio committee listened to you, they moved on to another agenda item, and then your testimony just miraculously disappeared. It was reported for a number of days in the media. So I'm trying to say that why would we say that because they were busy? Maybe I misunderstood your testimony. That matter remained in the public domain, and Parliament is getting accused of not having acted, and it was there. It still remained even after you left. Am I correct?
I think honourable member said we are leading a portfolio committee in communication, so I will understand in that line of questioning. However, what we are doing right now is some of the expectations that one had at the time. That when we talk to the members of Parliament, this thing is not going to be a talk and pass and leave it to the media to communicate it. This is going to be talking to the lawmakers who then get to see that the law is broken somewhere. There are people that are interfering with the running of the police. Let's work further on this. Come here, uMkhwanazi, and give us more details of what you're alleging. Any evidence on this? These evidence we ended up putting in the media, I had it with me at the time. I was speaking from it, but I did not publish it. When Mkhwanazi sent me a WhatsApp message and all sorts of things. So it's there. When you look at some of the presentations, the Honorable Chair and members, as an example, Mr. Mkhwanazi will send me WhatsApp messages and they are attached in some of these annexures. I'm very bad in tracking these documents. When you look at the presentations, the WhatsApp messages that I referred to from Mkhwanazi were a presentation that of a concern to the parliamentarians that should have triggered the action from the parliamentarians.
Sorry, General, I don't want to interrupt you. I have to get off the floor. So I suppose the essence of my question was that the portfolio committee never called you again to discuss this matter and request you to bring forward the evidence.
To date, that has never happened. So, because although we did not write, I did not give anything in black and white to the portfolio committee, I must say that. But my presentation to that committee and the response that some of the members gave, Mr. Adams in the main, should have triggered some question mark from the lawmakers that says, uMkhwanazi says there is this level of interference. Why do you say this? Do you have any evidence? Come here, show us this evidence, and call the people to account. We will have had the similar sitting, but not the ad hoc committee, but maybe the portfolio committee that will have been elevated to cabinet and elevated to parliament, and decisions be taken about correcting the wrong. But that didn't happen. We go to the media on the 6th of July. We present almost a similar thing, maybe more details into the media, and it triggers this sitting today. And we are happy about that. That at least that what we are hoping for in March has happened eventually. But it shouldn't be also about uMkhwanazi coming and sit here before the South Africans and talking to the ad hoc committee. And 5 months down the line, there's no interventions, there's no reforms that are introduced to try and mitigate this risk that we're identifying.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Chairperson. I have no further comments.
Have you exhausted your list of questions? Okay. Now you must say it on record so that members must hear that.
Chair, in the interest of time, I will say I've exhausted. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief Whip.
No, thanks, Chair. Good evening to you, the colleagues, and the General, as well as the legal team. No, General, I just want us to go back to your sworn-in statement. And I would like to bring your attention to paragraph 20 of your own statement to us, especially the paragraph that starts by saying, "It appeared to me from the discussion with Mr. Nkabinde that there may have been a deliberate attempt to have the directive sent while the National Commissioner was away and out of office, and an acting National Commissioner was in place. Now, why do you think that will matter?" And I'm asking this question because in your own knowledge, were the people involved that you are alleging were involved in this, including the minister, aware of who was going to be an acting National Commissioner, as a consequence of which they were going to plan the issuing of the directive in such a manner that it will receive the attention of their preferred acting National Commissioner?
When the National Commissioner goes on leave, he prepares a submission to the minister that so-and-so is going to be acting, as the minister will have approved the National Commissioner not to be in the office, whether he's on leave or he's traveling. So the minister will have been away. And we as a police management then get a communication. Once that approval is done, the communication is circulated to everyone to know the National Commissioner is going to be out of the office, so-and-so is the acting National Commissioner. So that communication goes out there. On this paragraph you're referring to, I'm saying this because the Minister of Police writes a letter that has got far-reaching consequences in the management and the running of the organization. You are disestablishing a team. You are suspending the filling of vacancies in a critical environment of the police without giving reasons at all. You do this thing exactly when the National Commissioner has gone on leave. Literally 2 days after you were with the National Commissioner. 2 working days. He was with the National Commissioner on a Saturday. Sunday, maybe he was in church. I don't know where he was on Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, he's relaxing at home. Wednesday is a holiday. And that Tuesday, the letter is dispatched to the office of the National Commissioner. And it comes out into the meet on the Thursday. So you then ask yourself a question, but couldn't the minister wait until he has a one-on-one with the National Commission on this? Shouldn't he have given more reasons why he's suspending the vacancies of filling of vacancies of crime intelligence? Shouldn't he have waited until he gets a briefing about the work of the political task team? But because those things are not done, you secure a meeting with the minister, and the meeting doesn't happen. And as the time progresses, the team is deprived of an opportunity to be rewarded awards. late in the same month of January. And you ask questions, you're not getting answers. And you're left with members that are demoralized. You're left with nothing else but to conclude that the intention then was to make sure that thing is executed while the National Commission is not in the office. Fortunately, the acting person at the time did not act on it.
But did you approach the acting person to say
no? But
something like this has come out and it has devastating consequences for the institution?
I did not talk to her because it's addressed to the National Commission, and I know the acting has got no business with the PKTT, but the National Commission himself. That's why I engaged the National Commission. I did not engage in the acting. And I must say again, honorable chair and members, this is part of what we talk about when I say reforms within the police, as I talked about this acting, because the deputy national commissioners get to be receiving this privilege of being elevated above the provincial commissioners, creates a problem. That's why today Spear can claim to be the boss of investigation, because he feels he's a deputy. And they ignore what the Constitution is saying about the powers of provincial commissioners. Yeah. And the same when the National Commissioner goes out of the office, then appoints the deputy to be the boss of the organization nationally.
You know, General, I was asking that question because somewhere in your reply to questions here, you made reference to the fact that, if I quote you accurately, that in your own understanding, and you'll indicate if there's a distortion on what I'm saying, an acting national commissioner, by practice and law, assumes the full responsibilities of the commissioner who is away for whatever reasons. If you are nodding yes to that understanding, therefore the question arises. Sure, the letter is addressed to somebody who's on leave, but as a functional of the department, you are aware that in his absence, somebody is acting. What militated against you taking a decision that my colleague, you are acting here. I know you are the one who's acting. And I understand that the letter is not addressed to you, it's addressed to the National Commissioner, but I don't think he will be in the position to act on the directive because he's away. What are you doing about it? What's your take on it?
I was less interested about the implementation of the letter. I was more interested in, my mind was on the why part. That's why I had to ask a person that I believe should have been consulted prior to that letter, which is a person who has a knowledge about the subject we're talking about. The implementation of it is not an issue. I would like to believe if the acting National Commission at the time implemented this letter immediately on the day, it would have been closed from the day. And of course, whatever consequences part of the investigation was going to follow was going to include that National Commission as well, because she's a trained policewoman. She would have known better not to implement that letter as is. But I'm glad she didn't. So I was not bothered about implementation. I was bothered about getting an answer as to why. Why such a decision? And then the person that can answer that question, it's a person who's an accounting office of the organization that has got the vested knowledge about the work of this team, not the acting. That was my interest, not the implementation of it.
So, General, you have expressed a very serious concern about the safety of the counterintelligence team that is deployed in Gauteng. Those members that you were mentioning have been doing a very good work, and you were worried about their safety and that of their own families. What do you think should SAPS do in order to mitigate any security risk to their lives?
Well, I don't know much about their families, where do they live and all that. I don't have the details of that, but I'm comfortable knowing that the members are not working alone. They've got protection teams that are around them all the time, 24/7, whether they're at work or they're not at work. I am told that the organization is keeping them at a safer place where they are accommodated. And that's only if the rogue animals within crime intelligence have not disclosed those accommodation places to the public again, where the members have been kept safe. So I'm quite happy with the security arrangement around the members themselves, but I don't know much about their family members. And so in the long run, their safety will only remain intact once can be guaranteed once the cases that their investigations are finalized, and it's still a long process. And then we are safe that the perpetrators, all of them, are behind bars. And those enablers within the organization, because why I talk about the safety, members are investigating, they are busy with the docket, they get invited at the office of Jairus Beer by the general in that office who says, there's an envelope for you. Don't oppose cases, bails. And they ignore that. The members get invited into a party into a house. Well, not all of them, one of them. He gets in there and he finds these criminals he's investigating, hosting the party here, and he's told, join the club. This is a life you're going to enjoy when you're with us. And he sees senior managers in the police in Gauteng, in this meeting, in this gathering. And the member walks out shivering and saying, but if these people can socialize with my bosses like this, I don't think I can even trust my bosses. That's why people will ask us the question as to, why is the police management of Gauteng not part of this we're talking about? Part of it is that they have been friends with wrong people, or they find themselves attending wrong parties. And they were seen by this investigation team in there, and there was doubt. Not to say they're part of it, they've never been implicated on anything, but the sheer close vicinity with the people that are under investigation makes the members to start questioning on their standing in terms of this. That's why they opt not to engage with them, and they went elsewhere, that crime intelligence. So it's all that scenarios that makes me say these members are well known. They are known by their commanders. They are known by some of these criminals that they're investigating. And so the safety around them and their families supposed to be prioritized. I do hope that the measures that has been put in place will assure their safety, but if not, we might really have a problem as a country.
Okay. Now, on the letter of the 31st by the Minister of Police, one of your major concerns about the process through which the letter was drafted, as you were briefed by Mr. Nkabinde, there is a point that you kept on making here yesterday and today about the letter being doing what we are calling to and fro. So the letter was moving from one end to another, and you seem to suggest that was happening because the person who was dictating the drafting of the letter was somebody that was driven by some kind of malice or malicious. Would you not consider it normal that there may be circumstances where a principal like yourself will dictate the preparation of a letter that you'll sign later to your PA or to your secretary or to somebody who works with you in the office? I mean, we are sitting with you here. It may very well be that there's a letter that you need to write, but you know what has to be on the letter, and you tell somebody in your office for them you dictate how they must prepare the letter, which may result in the letter doing what you are saying is to and fro, because it has to meet the standard that we have set out to the draft. Don't you think that under normal circumstances that can happen?
It's possible. That can happen. I don't dispute that. On the 28th, I'm with the minister in the funeral, Escalin. And the minister says, goodbye, National Commissioner. I'm running around. I need to relax. It's holiday time. Have a enjoy a New Year's Eve. uMkhwanazi, I'm here in the province. I'm going to enjoy my time here with the family. If there's anything that is urgent, I will touch base with you. Otherwise, all have a good news day. Saturday afternoon, National Commissioner gets on the jet. He flies out to Pretoria. I get in my car. I drive down to Durban. Sunday, it's a public holiday. The Monday, it's a working day. The minister said to me is sitting at home, so it's not working. Ordinarily, those that are working in offices, the culture in the police is that duty permits without compromising the work of the police. But those working in offices on days such as the New Year's Eve, the day before the Easter weekend, the days where we know that there's a lot of traveling that are happening, we tend to release the members, because the members that work in offices, usually they don't work on weekends, they don't work on public holidays, other than operational members. And therefore they use public transport, they use their own cars to go home and wherever they go, unlike operational members who will normally have vehicles picking them up when they're working. So we allow these members to leave early. Usually it's a common trend. At 10 o'clock in the morning, duty permits, you can release the members to go home early so they can do shopping before the rush hour, then they can be home safe. We always adopt that culture in the police as one of our wellness that we do for our employees. So the 31st of December is one of those days. They will expect by midday that the office is empty, except the police station. But administration offices, you're going to find them empty, people are gone. And that time, the minister's office is busy drafting letters of this nature. And that afternoon, after 4 in the afternoon, I said people leave early. These letters dispatched after 4 in the afternoon. And the office of the National Government is told to acknowledge that. So you can see the pattern, the behavior, beside what Ngabinda tells me, but the track record of when this letter was delivered and so forth, it tells you something is not right. The minister, you can't have this agency while we are supposed to be sitting at home and relaxing, but you're busy with such a letter. And we are directing this thing to the senior manager of the organization, the accounting office, the person you were with 2 days back, and you never said a word about it. What is the motive behind? So it's based on that where I conclude that the minister is not an author.
Okay. Now, General, you've made several references to Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, his conduct and his involvement, and as well as Mr. Spear, Lieutenant General Spear, I hope I'm saying it right. Now, in your own view, is there a relationship the two gentlemen have referred to just now? Is it a relationship in your own assessment of people who are merely involved in the business of self-enrichment and exercising influence over authority in the country, or their conduct runs far beyond that, which may mean intended to lead to the destruction of the democratic state? It's just a pure criminality of people who like to control and they have money, or this is more than that. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. I come from the school of thought that says, after 1994 in this country, well, from 1994, there are people who did not want South Africa to be a democratic country. And from where I come from, we believe those people still exist. They may be employing different means and methods today to achieve the same objective that they were defeated against in 1994, when we successfully became a democratic state. So when people are engaged in the activities that we're explaining here, you may not subscribe to the school of thought I spoke about, but now that I explained it, would you see their conduct as merely criminals who are engaged in a self-enrichment, or criminals who are engaged in a project for a state destruction?
When based on the evidence that we collected, I remember when we were investigating what is before us, what we have deducted from this approach and this relationship is that it was an opportunistic relationship that was formed, pushed by the Deputy National Commissioner to be close to the minister. The objective was to get the minister to endorse him, to allow him to do what he wants to do in the organization. That's for him to fulfill the criminal activities that we are investigating. The minister's buy-in into this relationship is influenced by the political interest in his personal capacity as a politician for future position that he wants to occupy. He always saw himself as a leader of his own political party, and subsequent to that as a leader of South Africa in future. So this police who has his own interest then make use of a political comrade of the minister to influence the minister to sell this support, pledge the support to the minister. So then the minister starts believing that because it comes from a comrade, that it is really going to propel him to where he wants to go. Not knowing on hindsight that what is an intention of this police officer that is coming with his help. I say this because when the minister received the briefing, which is what similar political task team decision will have done, he received an information about the poor performance of a health risk contractor in the police. He does not write a letter and say, shut down the contract. He invites management to come and give him a presentation. He says, this thing is frustrated. We have to recruit police. We have to send so many kids at the college. What is happening with this contract? There are complaints that are coming in, people that need to be retired, medical issues that they have, but there's no performance from this contractor. What's the story? Remember, it's a contract that was set up before his arrival. He doesn't have any relationship with this contract. The owner of this contract, he doesn't know. So he's a minister at the time. He brings the management, and the management is in a meeting with him, and he takes decisive action there that says, this is affecting the organization, National Commissioner. You need to launch an investigation against this contract, and you cancel it. That's a directive he issues there. He doesn't write it. He speaks in a meeting as an executive authority, which is a person who's concerned about the risk that this contract is bringing to the organization. So he pronounced on such. The how part is the National Commission must do it. But he says you can't have a contract that doesn't perform and you continue keeping it. Because we need to recruit next year. We don't have luxury of time. He walks out of that meeting. What followed thereafter? When the contract is cancelled, the communication from the owner of the contract before it's cancelled, the owner of the contract sends a communication to the comrade of the minister and say, your comrade that I'm financing has pronounced the National Commission, has given instruction to the National Commission to cancel my contract. Obviously, the comrade realized that, oh yes, the minister has caused a problem. He then went and he consoled this man and said, no, I'm going to talk to the minister. It cannot happen like that. He said he's going to try and talk to the minister about it. But it was too late because an investigation has been launched. And the report comes out. National Commission is going to come here tomorrow. We must ask him this question. After receiving a report, did he try to reach out to the minister to present the report before cancelling the contract? If so, did he meet with the minister? Did the minister listen to the outcome of the report? Or the minister dodged him, he never wanted to meet with him? Because that's exactly what happened. The National Commission couldn't meet the minister. Eventually, he had to take a decision that the report is before me, so I'm terminating. He terminated. So you could see that minister's interest was political career. There's a comrade who's supposed to help him to go there. Well, he says he's a comrade, Mr. Brown Mohodzi. I'm not saying he is a comrade, but that's what he says. His comrade will help him to propel him there. This side, you have a police commissioner that comes with some support to enable this thing to get to where it's supposed to go. So the conversion or the matching of these two interests that are not similar, that's what brought us here today. So that's why I'm saying that it cannot be a criminal intent on both sides. It's a criminal intent on one side and the political interest on the other. But the other depended on this one to get somewhere. So then he allowed this thing to happen, which has got this outcome of criminality at the end. I sit here before this parliament, and I said it before the South Africans. I have not accused the Minister of Police of crime specific in as far as this what is alleged against Gerald Spear. But his crime, if any, it's about the decision to shut down the team that pleases the criminal syndicate. So he participated in that front. But I don't see, I never, from my investigation, we don't pick up the minister's intention on this thing right at the onset. He was new in the department, he got captured quickly by the bad people. And unfortunately, didn't want to listen to us.
So your own information, General, is that after the minister issued that instruction at the meeting, without defining the details in terms of how the commissioner must act, the commissioner acted, and after the commissioner acted, he wanted to reach out to the minister in order to give him a report, and the minister did not make time available.
That's what the National Commissioner told me.
Okay, we'll probe that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
but your own deduction then is that the reason why the minister did not respond favorably to the national commissioner is because of the interventions that were already being made by
Comrade
Mr. Brown Mohoti.
That's correct.
On the other side. And
not only Brown Mohoti, there's another businessman that was approached by the very same contract owner, Vusmus Matlala. I forgot his name, the fellow, Asian fellow in Northern Cape, in Northwest, one of the businessmen, who was also approached and say, hey, the minister is intending to do A to Z. And that one said, no, the minister is not going to do that. We'll try and talk to the minister about it. So the minister will have been approached most likely by more than one person to say to him, the decision you've taken there has got these implications. Maybe don't go ahead with it. But it was too late. Okay. Because the minister could not have reversed the investigation that was already conducted by internal audit.
Just coming to you may not be able to deal with some of the issues on what I'm going to ask because of the sensitivity attached to it. Earlier on, somebody here made reference to the KZN unrest. And now the question I want to pose is that, in your opinion, do you think that the occurrence of that unrest and the way in which it appeared to have been coordinated in a highly sophisticated way would have been prohibited if the security forces, especially at the crime intelligence level, were marching in unison in terms of dealing with that issue? Or it was just as overwhelming as it was that there was no possibility, never mind what was the state of our crime intelligence, to deal with that situation? Like I'm saying, you will decide some of the issues you may have dealt with them in the JSC, the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, but you will decide whether you can, to what extent you can deal with the question that I'm raising.
If I were to talk about the issues of the unrest, I spoke about the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah.
I must say upfront, in that Human Rights Commission, the Speaker of this Parliament was the Minister of Defense at the time, said bad things about me in that Human Rights Commission.
The former Speaker of Parliament, yes.
Yeah, the former Speaker, who's now he's at X. She's no longer in Parliament. Mm. She said bad things when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. And she said what she said. I picked up the phone, I phoned Gerald Gwele. And I asked Gerald Gwele, I said, Minister, you were in that meeting. This Minister of Defense says when they arrived in KZN, a group of ministers, I started addressing them about things that have got nothing to do with the state of security that existed at the province at the time, but I addressed them on things that were necessary. You can go on YouTube and replay that when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. After learning that, I phoned Gerald Gwele and asked Gerald Gwele, do you want me to go to this Human Rights Commission and tell the South Africans about the close meeting that I had with you? What did we discuss? And Gerald Gwele pleaded that I shouldn't do that. It was difficult I didn't do that. But that stayed with me. That I deliberately left an operation. And I went to entertain my wife because she gave birth to a child during the thick of things. That was her words. And if I were to highlight on what transpired there, the riot started and the riot ended. The ministers had to come in a day before the president came to assess the damage done already. They flew into the province. They arrived in the province, they wanted to be briefed because they must be ready for their boss that is coming. So they were not part of the operation. Yes, they participated in a mop-up operation, not in the violence. The violence was long gone. When they landed, we briefed them about what has happened, past tense. And they stayed there, the president arrived, then they briefed the president, and from there I left. What she did not appreciate, even at the time, was that I got into the aeroplane after the riot. I flew to Pretoria. My wife gives birth today. The following day, I took her out of the hospital with a newly born, and got into the vehicles. We drove 1,000 kilometers to transport her to her parents. And I left her there in a safe place, and I got on the aeroplane and I flew back to Durban because I cared about the safety of the citizens in the province. But we have the Minister of Defense who doesn't appreciate that, who says to me, I left the operation, I entertained my family issues. So I took an offense on that because it was bad. Close meeting that we are having. They arrive in the province, the Premier is sitting there, Mr. Segalala, the Minister of Defense, State Security, Police, and other MECs. The first request to them was that, can we excuse the rest of the junior members? I want to address you as executive, and the generals of the army, and the head of State Security at the time. They agreed. Others left. We sat in that meeting. I wanted to vent my frustration as a member of the security cluster in government, as a general in the police. The fortunate part that has happened to me is that I've been working in units that work very close with the military. So I've got colleagues in the army that talks to me from time to time. We exchange training. I know the challenges they're experiencing on a daily basis. When I address those seniors on the day, the first thing I started with, say that I was political or otherwise, but I had to shoot straight. Then I said, all of you sitting here, I believe you are coming from the same political party. Your interest must be aligned, all of you. This interest is safety of this country. But what we have allowed to happen with the security cluster is not fair. It's what brings us here today. And I started an examples. And I started with each one of them. I said, Premier, you did A to Z. And that's not right. Minister of Defense, you go to the national TV, you say there's X number of soldiers deployed in KZN, and you're lying. The colonel in charge of the province in KZN has got 150 soldiers. The 150 soldiers don't have vehicles to get out of the base. And those few vehicles that are there don't have diesel, because there's no contract on diesel in the military. And those diesel that are being sponsored by private sector to get into those vehicles, the soldiers can't get out of the base because they've got no place to sleep in Durban. They don't have a place to sleep because they've got no tents. The tents are old. The military have not bought them tents. Why those things are happening is because there's no budget allocated to the military. Then you have a minister that wanted me to disclose that at the Human Rights Commission. And I said it in a close meeting. But she went out there and make it look me as a bad person. I'm saying it now, what transpired in that meeting, close meeting. If all of them are there, they will tell you. Some of the things I addressed in that meeting, coming back to your question, was that I had asked the Premier, I've asked the Minister. I said, declare the state of emergency here now, not tomorrow. And the state of emergency must shut down social media communication. Had we done that at the time, we were not going to have the destruction that we had. Because honestly speaking to honorable members, the public was angry about the arrest of the president. It was not a planned thing. I hear analysts and everyone else and the reports that came out that says it was well coordinated. That is wrong. It was individuals that saw what the court has done, the ruling they came up with, and they were upset. And they felt it cannot be that the president is going to be treated like this. So they were spontaneous in their response. There are members of the African National Congress that were there in the homestead trying to control the crowd themselves. I arrived at one stage, I had to tell some of them. I think there's a Reverend Dube amongst the people who were there, trying to assist the police. And I said to him, Reverend, don't stop these people, they're angry. Just leave them. Let them go and gather there and vent. If they are not, you're going to have problems. They are angry. Let them vent. They are not disturbing anyone here except violating the COVID rules without wearing a mask. Other than that, they're not violating anyone. Don't provoke them. So it was what we were seeing that had happened was the people that were angry that started in the morning by blocking the road at John Ross, Richards Bay. The blockage happens, it gets taken on the social media, it gets sent all over, and people see what has happened in Richards Bay because people are angry, they block the trucks. Yeah, here at Shaw, let's do the same thing. Here's a truck here with sand, stop this truck, offload this sand on the road. Create distraction. Social media and say, oh, now they are doing it in John Ross in Pangani, they are doing it at Shaw, where that's also at uMkhwanazi, ban this truck that is driving on the road. They ban the truck. And then, because of the social media communication, then we have the president's daughter who says, oh, so and so, we see you in that area. We see you in that, and then somehow people get fuel then from there. But how it started was just anger that started. And when then started fueling, then we started having communication on WhatsApp. They start saying, this is how you make a petrol bomb. And let's come together. Let's go and break in that place. Let's go and break in that place. And people start mobilizing people to go and steal polonies and cheese. And that's why it became a mayhem. It started slow like that. And then we had the Ngizwe who decided, let me go and encourage the Gauteng people to join in. It's not something that was originally planned. It's something that evolved as it happened because of the anger from people. Could the police have done something, or the security class have done something to prevent it? I say yes. If there was a decision, a willingness from the executive authority to shut down the social media, because they were using that to mobilize. They were using that to spread the message. I said the former boss of SABC is not necessarily my favorite person, but it's something that is profound, he once said at one stage, that do not publish this violence that is happening here, because you are encouraging other people to learn from this, and they also do it at the same time. Might not be a wrong thing to do, but this transparency, sometimes encouraging lawlessness to multiply. That social media that captured the wrong that happened during the riot, when it started, encouraged more wrong to happen on the day. And then we end up blaming law enforcement. Yes, we should have shut down social media. That means they will not have communicated on WhatsApp. They will not have mobilized each other easy. And when they were calling, we were going to be able to listen to them. We had gadgets that were kept in the storeroom because one of the 5 ministers who were supposed to sign and give us a permission to use it did not want to sign. As a result, we couldn't listen to the phones. And yet we had equipment that we had bought and was sitting at crime intelligence offices not being used. So those are some of the challenges we're experiencing then. So what I'm trying to explain there is that security class as a whole has been weakened over time. And the one that has been weakened the most of them all is military. And it pains me because if everything failed from the South African Police Service, those are the big brothers we must go to. If we can't go to them because we are better off than them, then there's a problem in the country. Because that means the country is not safe. So I'm not a soldier. I'm not motivating for money to go to the military that much, but I can tell you, for my own safety, for the safety of this country, if we're not taking the security serious, military being the first point of departure, then intelligence and the police, we're not going to have a country at all.
General, I don't know to what extent are you familiar with the two reports, and I don't want you to discuss in detail the recommendation, but just the general threats of what they intended to achieve. That's the report of the uMkhwanazi panel, as well as the report of Professor Africa. The uMkhwanazi one was in around 2018, 2019, and the one of Prof Africa, I think it will be 2 years later than that. Now, the two reports, not exactly the same, but made proposals or recommendations in terms of what needs to be done to revamp the intelligence of our country, if I remember very well. Now, would you say that the activities that are carried out or the work that is being done by Khumalo, General, I mean, I think it's Major General Khumalo, Lieutenant General.
Lieutenant General.
Yes, the one who's in crime intelligence. Would you say that that is part of implementing those recommendations? The work that is doing, which I think you have been speaking very fond of, is it consistent with what was recommended there? Is it a deviation? What's your interpretation of his interventions as the head of that division in relation to the two reports I referred to?
Honorable members, I don't work at crime intelligence. I might have had a glance of the report, not necessarily paying much attention on it. What has been done within the crime intelligence, the reforms that Jarokoma has been implementing, whether they are in line with the report or not, I'm not able to respond on it. I'm not an accounting officer that would be privy to the performance and the target performance of crime intelligence. That brings about that. I guess the National Commission might be in a better position to respond to that. I, however, know that some of the issues that were raised as we are engaging as the police management through the POC are being discussed, that were discussed at the Africa report and many other reports thereafter. They have been discussed within the POC in as far as us getting a proactive intelligence that help us to prevent things from happening. But having said that, honorable members, it does not necessarily take away the fact that intelligence were continuously giving notices and warning about certain things. It might not be precise as to who's going to do what, but the atmosphere in the countries get to be observed by intelligence, and they present through the intelligence estimate the risk that the country is facing. And when the reports are presented and they are not being taken seriously, or recommendations thereof from intelligence are not implemented, we then end up with a disaster like the one we had. There's other disasters that are coming. When you look at the level of unemployment, especially on the youth in this country, the way it's escalating, it's a disaster in waiting. So when the pipe bursts, we might come back and say we have no intelligence, and yet there's warnings that are coming. So it becomes a question then of then saying there was no intelligence when 2021 happened. What else we should have received differently? With respect to some of the commissioners get appointed to lead these inquiries, they are not subject matter experts. They are academians. They think on the academic side of things. But if you bring an engineer to come and tell you how to stop water from coming into this house, they will come up with a different solution than an expert that will come and talk without knowing how to mix the cement and sand to protect the water from coming in. So it's that sometimes that we find lacking on reports. There will be good recommendation from Falam, from everyone else, that says that you should have done, but the reality is the problem that existed is not necessarily been attended to. The 2021 problem, warning was there. Everyone foresaw what was coming. You cannot be that when the tsunami happens in the middle of the ocean because there's an earthquake that took place, you now have to figure out how you're going to stop the water from breaching shore and causing damage. You then blame the engineers that build those hotels next to the water, that they should have foreseen that when the tsunami comes, it's going to do this. They didn't foresee the extent of the tsunami that's coming. When it becomes so worse and severe, it's going to cause destruction either way, no matter how much plans you put in place. So similar to our intelligence, there will always be gaps, and the gaps are caused by the implementers of recommendations. And yet, there are some instances where you could say we should have received specific intelligence about this plan, and we did not. I agree, I take that. But part of it is that, which I'm briefed by intelligence, is that it was a decision taken by this government, well, not this government, the previous government, in a dawn of democracy, that we shall not infiltrate political parties. We are not a security branch, so therefore we won't deploy to the political parties and infiltrate. Now, when you have an event of 2021 being planned and executed within a political party, then we ask intelligence as to who is doing it, and they say, we don't know, because you're not supposed to tap these people's phones. They're going to say it's a political thing. Of course, it's a decision that was taken back then. Yes, it has an impact. Is that in the recommendation in the report? It's not there. But I know about it, and it's a problem. That must be addressed. It can't be there because there's a political party and you think there's no crime that is planned there. You're supposed to be operating in that space. But I was told by the head of intelligence in my province that they're not allowed to go there.
Now, General, on your recommendation, the very last paragraph, 65.5. I just want to draw your attention to section 12 of the SAPS Act, and I'm quite certain that you are very familiar with that. Particularly the first sentence, and I won't even read it in its entirety, where it says a provincial commissioner shall have command and control. What do you understand about that authority of the provincial commissioner in relation to what you have identified as weaknesses and or deficiencies occasioned by the fact that the structure of the police is centralized? And I want to give you maybe one or two other examples as you answer, so that you can make us understand why in this case it won't work, while in other instances almost a similar kind of a relationship exists, but it works. Like, you may not be familiar with this, but if you look at the Department of Education as an example, you've got a Minister of Basic Education at the national level who has a responsibility for certain tasks together with the DG and the entire team at national level. Then in each of the provinces, you've got the MECs with their HODs, fully fledged department. They too exercise a certain authority within the confines of the law and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Now, in the context of your own work in the police service, and given what you are proposing about this idea of a decentralization, what do you think is a major issue, taking into account that there is this provision that says the provincial commissioner shall have, not may have, shall have command and control? What is meant by that in practical terms?
The application of what is envisaged in the Act, that is not happening.
It's not happening?
No.
Okay.
The practical application of how we operate as a police is not what you read in the Act. Why I say this? The National Commissioner remains the boss in the organization. By means of delegation, the National Commissioner delegates certain things that you can do as a provincial commission, things you cannot do. I said here yesterday, I cannot appoint, recommend, or approve even a panel that must sit and make recommendation on the appointment of a person with the rank of a brigadier and high. I'm not allowed to do that. However, a lieutenant general in the head office has got that delegation to approve the panel. So I must write to a lieutenant general at the head office who approves the panel for me and give it back to me so I can start the process. I'm not allowed to advertise the vacancy as a province on my own. I might say I need this expert in this field, so therefore I want to advertise the post. I can't do that. I must write to the head of HR, head office, and request the permission for that to happen, because the National Commissioner has delegated things in that fashion. That's a practical things that are happening in the organization. you will have a workforce of 20,000 employees with a total budget of maybe 2 billion or 3 billion rand. You're supposed to be exercising command and control over the province and work within the budget. But the reality is, the big percentage, 80% of that budget, is for compensation. You have no say on it as a provincial commissioner. You are only responsible for the running cost of the province. That 25% or less than on that percentage that you are given. If it's 80, then you're left to 20. When that money is finished, you're then on an overdraft, you're on a negative. And the head office starts switching off certain score codes that you cannot pay this, you cannot pay that, and then you're doomed. When you have a workforce of 20,000 with a budget of those billions of rand to pay their salaries, and you have an X number of employees leaving the service through retirement, resignation, and whatever, and you wish that you can recruit more to replace, you're not allowed to do that. Because as they leave, that is not your budget, as they leave, you go back to the head office and you plead with the National Commissioner to advertise these vacancies that have been created. The National Commissioner decides, your province is not a priority. The province X is a priority. Let alone the fact that you had people occupying those positions and there's budget that was allocated to those individuals. But when they are gone, that money is gone. Those typical, so we are coming from 25,000 workforce in KZN. We are now sitting at 19,000. While the population is growing. I'm talking about KZN alone. So those are some of the examples that I'm giving here, honorable members, that the act, the legislature envisages that the provincial commission will have these powers. But in reality on the ground, it does not have. What makes it worse on that is that the act is written like that. But the regulation of the very same act says something differently. It recognizes a deputy national commissioner senior than the provincial commissioner. It recognizes a divisional commissioner senior than the provincial commissioner. In the regulation, it's written like that. Attend any function, I want to invite to attend any police function, and you listen to the minister of national commission acknowledging the attendance on the list. Acknowledge a deputy national commissioner, divisional commissioner, provincial commissioner, and others. That's how they address, because that's what the regulation says. Deputy is important, divisional commissioner is important, and the last person in line is a provincial commissioner, contrary to what the act is saying. So uMkhwanazi is a provincial commissioner, can't change that. If the national commission doesn't see the need of changing it, maybe the legislation might need to help us to ask questions as to why we are practicing something that's not written in the legislation.
But is the regulation which we are talking about, because it would seem to me that it's a violation of the act. Is it an internal mechanism within the institution, or is something that had to do with Parliament before its approval?
In terms of the legislation development, the minister gets given powers by the act to develop regulations.
Okay.
So if those regulations are not in line with the act, unfortunately, the citizen doesn't have to input much on it. They just get gazetted like that and implemented.
Okay.
So in this case, the regulations were amended that are no longer the same as what the act has been. That brings about some of these challenges that we're experiencing that might need to be relooked at.
Okay. Thank you very much, General. I'm done, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Chief Whip, are you done?
Yes, indeed. I'm 100% done.
Thank you so much. I'm proceeding to the MKP. At the time I stop your watch here, you still had 27 minutes. It's okay.